Simon Peter answered and said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." If I can put you in the frame of mind what was going on here, they're walking. As I did some study on the surrounding areas, they're walking on these big, huge rocks, and this is the scene as they're looking out over these big, giant rocks. And so the relevance of that is when he tells Peter that you're a rock. There was plenty of visual aids there in the area while he was doing this. And what had happened, before we get to that part, let's look at where he started out. Jesus, we know, the first miracle he does, he turns water into wine. And so after he turns the water into wine, this starts his ministry. He tells his mom, he says, woman, which I don't want to teach on this today, but he says, woman, meaning you're no longer my mother. That's what that's telling her. You're not going to mother me no more. I'm now a man. And my time is not yet come. Because see, Jesus probably, well, I know he knew that as soon as his ministry started, he did not have much time. And so what Jesus does is the first thing he does, and Matthew 13:54 says, when he had come to his own country, he went to the synagogue. So here his ministry is about to begin. And so that they were astonished and said, "Where did this man get this wisdom and his mighty works? Is this not the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary, and his brothers James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas?" But when his own people heard about him, now this is in Mark, I put the Gospels together here so you understand what's going on here. But when his own people heard about this, they went out to lay hold of him, for they said he's out of his mind. So we see here that Jesus is not only rejected in his own hometown, his own people that knew of him said he's out of his mind. And it says they were offended at him. But Jesus said to them, "A prophet's not without honor except in his own house and his own country." Now he did not do many mighty works there because of his unbelief. So he's rejected by his town. The next thing you find out in John 5, even his brothers did not believe in him. So now he's rejected by his family. And then he goes out to the common people. Surely they're going to receive the Son of God. John 7:12 says no. It says there was much complaining among the people concerning him. Some said he's good. Others said no. On the contrary, he deceives the people. And then we know that he was rejected by the elders. He's rejected by the chief priests. He's rejected by the scribes. He's rejected by the church of the day. And then, on top of all this, at the very end of it, in Matthew 23, we learn this, that he says, "Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the one who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her, how often I wanted to gather your children together as hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you're not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate." And that happened in 70 A.D. Now we know that after this time happened, that he leaves there and he is now put on trial. And then he goes and he appears before Herod. Do you remember Herod, it says, wanted to hear about this Jesus. He said this might be John the Baptist risen from the dead. And so he went and appears before Herod, and as he's on trial, and Herod rejects him. And then he goes and appears before Pilate, and he said, basically Jesus says, what is truth? Is what Pilate says to Jesus. And so as all these people and all the world seems like they had rejected Jesus, this is my message today is, who do you say that Jesus is? Who is he to you? You got to wonder today, it seems like the country as a whole has decided we don't need Jesus anymore. And then we've talked about all the cities and all the governments of the world says we don't need Jesus anymore. But who do you say he is? See, after the mission is failed, where he fell to the country, and then it seemed like, well, gosh, I can't seem to reach the people in my own hometown. Then he finally ends up in Jerusalem, and then the people said, well, you might be Elijah, and you might be Jeremiah, or you might be one of the great prophets. This is what we have today, as Kimberly plainly said earlier today. Who is Jesus to you? We don't want to talk about Jesus no more. We got God. We'll talk about him, but as long as we don't talk about Jesus. And why did they not accept that who Jesus was? It's because they lusted for the things of this world. Jesus said they loved darkness. Who is Jesus Christ to you? Do you have a personal relationship with Him? See, this is going to be an issue where they're going to stand before Christ in that day, and they're going to say to Him, did we not do this in your cities? Did you taught in their synagogues? You did all these great things. And Jesus will say, depart from me, I never knew you. See, it's not enough to know about Jesus Christ. You must have Him in your heart, and you must believe that He is, and you must believe that He is the Savior of the world. See, a lot of people today teach that Jesus is a good prophet. He's a prophet. I've actually heard people say, oh, I think he's a prophet. But then they'll say, well, he could be. He was a man that did good things. They did good things. And they never recognize that he is the one that died for their sins. And this becomes, as we talked about last week, this becomes a complete issue because you cannot serve the world and God. See, for all history, and as we study more in Revelation and move through the book of Revelation in their Bible study, you're going to find out that there has been a war against Christ since the day He died. There's been a war against Him. See, they don't care to talk about Jesus, just like when they would organize religion. They had all kinds of rituals they performed. They would do this, and they would do that, and they do the other, but it wasn't about Jesus. Today I say to you that even the church has decided not to make the church about Jesus. Or if they do make it about Jesus, it is the Jesus I don't know. The Jesus that has no power. The Jesus that can't do miracles, the Jesus that can't save your soul. It's not really about Jesus because they need something big. See, if you're going to impress Herod, which the temple did, think of all the things in the world. But what I'm trying to explain to you today is down to the individual. That's what the Lord wants you to know. It doesn't matter if your town rejects Christ. He's interested in what your opinion is. What is your personal opinion? And I thought, God, I have failed, I have failed, I have failed. How many's ever felt you failed? I failed to testify and witness and convince people that Christ is the Messiah, the one that was to come, the one you have to put your trust in if you want to escape this cursed earth. The Lord wanted me to remind you of this, that the wrath of God is not satisfied yet, church. You learn that in Revelation, the wrath of God is not satisfied. His time has been put on hold, but eventually the wrath of God will. Why? Because of what Adam did in the Garden of Eden, 6,000 years. And Jesus comes to this earth and tries to deliver us from the wrath of God. Did you all know this? That's why this is what salvation about. What does it mean to be saved? Saved from what? The wrath of God to come because of what Adam and Eve did in the Garden of Eden. It has not been satisfied. And then He brings His Son to the earth, and you talk about being mad. It dawned on me today, this morning I was saying, God, what do you want? How do you want me to explain this to these people? How do you want me to relay this? And He said, okay, you're standing in a group of people, and we're all standing around, and here you said, hey, let me introduce you here and your kid comes up and says, this is Wayne. And I've had that happen before, and I said, no, I'm Dad to you, punk. Because you called me Wayne. That's disrespectful. Who is He to you? Is He Jesus, or is He the Son of the living God? See, that one statement there, to look that up, that means He is my King. It's divinity. It is stating, when Peter said that, Peter was saying that He is divine. He is the one that was to come. And see, we cannot get along with everybody and without mentioning Jesus, because that breaks that getting along with everybody. Because they don't accept Jesus. They'll accept God. As Kim said, it's a broad spectrum. They'll accept anything spiritual. I'm spiritual. No, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. I say that because the word Christian, it don't mean the same thing it used to mean, does it? Now let's just be honest. It doesn't mean the same thing anymore. There's a lot of people claiming to be Christian, but they don't follow Jesus. So as I was depressed, and saying, God, you know, all the men that preach the gospel, the people that sing the gospel, the people that's trying to bring people into a knowledge of Jesus Christ, they're trying to get us to fellowship and love one another and do what Jesus said. Can you imagine what kind of country we would have if it was truly based on Jesus Christ? It would be an awesome country. It's like the first church was an awesome church. But we can't have that today. Why? Because Jesus is no longer the Son of God. I've heard some preachers even recently say that they were a God and they were just as important as Jesus. I heard this myself. Out of their own mouth. Not told me, I heard it. And they say we're gods and we could have done what Jesus did. I've heard that. That's surprising that people feel this way. But no matter, we're going to go through a time. I danced around this to get to this point because nobody wants to hear this stuff. But here's the point. There's coming a time when your family is going to betray Jesus. When your neighbor is going to betray Jesus. When your city, state, and your country is going to betray Jesus. They're doing it right now. What about you? What about you? Is he the Son of the living God to you? Is he everything to you? Because these trials are going to come. How many knows this has to be true? Because it's written in the Word. And when these trials come, if Jesus is not the Son of God to you today, he will not be the Son of God to you later. You know, it used to be a joke. I don't know how many was taught this, but we was taught basically in a second chance. I don't believe this is true, but I'm just telling you what I was taught. And we were taught that after the Antichrist comes on the earth, of course the Bible says the Antichrist has been here even during the days of John, but when he gets here, and then we're going to be called away with the Lord, that they're going to get right with God at that time. How many's heard that before? Besides me. I swore I was going to ask the audience any questions, but here I did. So you hear this before, that there's going to be a second chance for them to get right with God. Okay, well, I don't believe that's true. But here's my point to you. If you cannot confess that Jesus Christ is the Son of God in a time of peace, you're never going to be able to do it in a time of war. See, this is, the people at first was happy to have Jesus. I want you to notice what happens with here when Jesus finally asked them this. You know, it had to be disconcerting to him. You know, here he leaves heaven, comes down to the earth, preaches, does all these good things, blinded eyes, the lame healed, all these things, and to have the whole city and everyone reject him, his own family. That's horrible. And then finally he comes down to his close friends. Who am I? Well, some say, so they couldn't follow him. Some say, and they couldn't follow him anymore. Some say, and they couldn't follow anymore. And so Jesus is down to 12, and one of them betrays him. Who is Jesus to us? God wants you to know that I'm concerned with you personally as much as I am with the nation.